0.82, and what we're going to be looking at today is the purchasing processes. In SAP Business One, I can create a purchase quotation, a purchase order with or without approvals and workflow, a goods receipt of the goods into the warehouse, and match that to an AP invoice. If I create a document once, I can copy it to the other documents. Alternatively, if I don't want to follow those processes, I can simply come in and create, for example, an AP invoice or a goods receipt. I don't have to follow the various steps, but if I would like to and create more of a situation where I need approvals, etc., then I can follow that process of quotation, purchase order, goods receipt, and AP invoice. The beauty of it in SAP Business One is we give you the flexibility to do it either way. So let's start by having a look at purchase quotations in SAP Business One. A purchase quotation allows you to create a request for quotation from your supplier. So let's go in here, let's choose a particular supplier. We'll choose Lasercom. The required date for our quotation is a week from today. And our reference number is leverage 123. And what we want to do is we want a quotation for, now again, nice facility in SAP Business One. In the item description, I simply typed part of the name and it brought up a list for me. The IBM info print. The quoted date, I want it to be today. The required quantity, I want them to quote on 1,200. And let's now see what I can do is I can put a note down here in the remarks saying please ensure that warranty info is included, and I now add this in. What I now have in the system is a purchase quotation or request for quotation for 1,200 of the IBM info prints that I'd like, the required date of the 14th of August. And I can send that off to Jimmy Miller at Lasercom. Now, of course, the question you may be asking is, what if I want to send that same quotation to multiple suppliers? Well, in SAP Business One, we've created a purchase quotation generation wizard, and what that allows me to do is create a purchase quotation for multiple items from multiple suppliers. So again, we'd be using that if what we're going to do is ask multiple suppliers to give us a quote on particular items, a particular quantity by a particular date. The next step potentially in the order processing, purchase order processing segment is purchase orders themselves. So let's go in. Again, we choose our supplier. We can, of course, do a wildcard search on this supplier, or we can click on the button and drill down and get the supplier that way. And in this instance, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a purchase order in for some IBM info prints. Again, let's put some notes. Please note that warranty must be 3 years, and I can put some additional remarks and comments down the bottom as well. I can tell them that the delivery date must be on the 21st of August, and now I can create that purchase order. Now, if I had an approval process on that purchase order, i.e. if I didn't have approval to place the purchase order but it needed approval from my manager, it would have then sent off to my manager a request for approval which looks something like this. This is one I created earlier from a different user. The manager would then go in through workflow into my pending purchase order, which is pending, and would approve that purchase order. Of course, my manager could have drilled down to the actual purchase order to have a look at it. So what we see there is an example of workflow built into SAP Business One, where I create a purchase order, but potentially that purchase order is beyond my level of authorization or beyond our budget, for the month and therefore requires approval through standard SAP workflow by a manager. I can, of course, also create purchase orders not just for items as we saw there, but also for services. So in this instance, let's say, for example, I'm going to create a purchase order from CTI Computers. The description is please install PC antivirus software, and I can choose my GL account. That's the account I'm going to put it to, and my unit price. I can of course put some remarks down here and add that in. So what we see there is an example of creating a purchase order for a service. I simply went in, wrote out the service that I want the purchase order for, chose my GL account, and created the purchase order. Now, if my purchase order was for goods which are going to be receipted into my warehouse, then the next step in the process is to go and do that goods receipt PO as the goods are received. So what I would do is go in. If you remember, the last one I created was Lasercom for items. I can go in, I can say to the system, copy from previous purchase orders. There's the one I created today. Now the system is asking me with regards to exchange rates, do I want to use the exchange rate when the original document was created, or do I want to use today's exchange rate? I'm just going to default that. What the system has now done is it has copied through from the purchase order a goods receipt for me. And I can see that goods receipt there. I can of course change this. Let's say, for example, they shipped 2 instead of 1. I can physically change that. I can add additional notes or text in here. So let's just receipt the 1, and we can see it's based on purchase order 121. Let's add that in. Now that goods receipt is in and the stock is physically in our warehouse. Of course, if I had serial number tracking or batch traceability on that item, then it would ask me for serial numbers or batches associated with that goods receipt. Remember, in SAP Business One, I can use batch tracking or serial number tracking. In this instance, I've chosen neither. I've simply receipted the item into the warehouse. When it comes time now to do the AP invoice, once again, what I'll do is simply pick up my supplier, Lasercom, and I will copy it from that goods receipt, today's goods receipt. There it is, and now the AP invoice is ready to go. Of course, if the price was slightly different, I might change that as per the AP invoice and add that in. Now, posting date's missing. What SAP does, you can see the red bar down the bottom is an error message for me. It's telling me that the posting date is missing. So let's just go in there, D for today's date. Now the system has also defaulted the due date for me. We can see I have 30-day terms here. So the posting date is the 7th of the 8th, and the due date on this AP invoice will be the 6th of the 9th. Let's also add in, while we're here, the supplier invoice number, and now we're good to go. We can see it's based on purchase order 121 and goods receipt 102. As we go back into that AP invoice, just with the back arrow, a couple of other things to note. Firstly, I can right click and I can get other information. If I have a similar AP invoice I want to copy it to, I can duplicate it. I can look at my base document from which this was created. I can go in and see row details, which gives me a lot more detail associated with this particular AP invoice. How many of these items do I have in stock? What's my open quantity, my committed quantity, etc. I can also, by right clicking, I can go in and see volume and weight calculations, opening and closing remarks, related activities. So in this instance, on this AP invoice or on a purchase order, I can create an activity and assign it to someone else in the organization. As an example, I might create a large purchase order and create an activity for my manager to review that, either through workflow or a standard activity. So I can create activities and attach this AP invoice to that activity and assign it to someone in the organization. A very nice feature in SAP Business One, I can have a look at the relationship map associated with these documents. So in this instance, it's showing me that the purchase order 121 became goods receipt PO 102 and AP invoice 110. If I want to drill down now, for example, to that goods receipt PO, I simply click on it and I'm down to that particular goods receipt. Remember, I can now drill down to the item and actually review the item, inventory data associated with the item, sales data, purchasing data, etc. So again, just quick, easy, drill down, drill around functionality in SAP Business One, and I started by using this very nice relationship map functionality, showing me the relationship between the various documents inside of SAP. Other elements to note, I can do recurring transactions within SAP Business One. I can do landed costs, i.e. the ability to add in freight, insurance and other costs associated with bringing the items into the country from overseas and then associating those costs to the item and apportioning the costs of the freight, taxes, etc. In that container to the specific items. I also have a procurement confirmation wizard if I want, and the purchase quotation generation wizard that we looked at a little earlier. I can, of course, when I'm doing purchase orders, and I can PDF those and I can send them directly via fax or email from within SAP Business One. I have, as with other parts of the system, easy access to reports. So if, for example, I want to see all of my open purchase orders, I simply click on my open items list, drop down to purchase orders, and there I can see my open purchase orders. Now let's say, for example, I want to see all my open AP invoices. There they are. My AP credit notes, I don't have any, but I can drill down and I can see at each step of the way additional information. My documents draft reports is very, very nice. This allows me to, let's say I'm halfway through creating a large purchase order and I need to go into a meeting. I can leave that as a draft, go into my meeting, come back and then continue with that document. I can, of course, also copy old documents and duplicate them into new AP invoices or purchase orders as well. So again, flexibility. I have the ability to create a document, save it as a draft, come back and finish that later on. I have purchase analysis where I can go in and by supplier or by item or by sales employee. I can do an annual, monthly or quarterly report by supplier or by item. So in this way, I can start to review how many items I've bought from which suppliers or how much I've spent with each supplier. I can also do purchase quotation analysis and other reports directly from within SAP Business One reporting. That covers the topic of purchasing in SAP Business One. There are obviously extended modules too, which allow us to do elements like purchase planning through integrated applications, but that's not covered in this particular session. What we wanted to cover off here was more the standard purchasing workflow within SAP Business One. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.